Yeah, guys, I'm back. Yeah, guys, yeah, I'm Each is I'm saying I'm back. I'm just uploading my other videos there that I have made. About this issue of immigrants. Yeah, I'm done with that one. Part one and part two, I'm done. I'm just uploading part one. Then after that, part two. Then yeah. So here's another issue, here's another issue that we still have in South Africa. This issue of, this issue of our hospitals, public hospitals, clinics, that are destroyed and that are a mess. And, guys, one person that was speaking about this thing, and hey guys, but actually, you know, so as guys, having someone like a Peniel, guys, yeah, but the guy is amazing. I know you guys, maybe his channel. Yeah, go to his channel, subscribe, and yeah. So there's this one of this whole thing of public hospitals this issue, it looks like is the same like with education system in public schools. And guys, with these politicians, do you think politicians, they'll go to public hospitals when they seek for medical attention? Or maybe do you think politicians will take their children to public schools? Yeah, to public schools. Do you think they will do that? But guys, if you can look at the mess in these hospitals up until today in the country, the mess. But there's this one, NHI. I forget about public hospitals. Here is NHI. If you are here. But guys, how is this NHI gonna help? Because instead of focusing on this public, or instead of focusing on fixing these public hospitals, but no, NHI. Maybe NHI is the best thing that that can, yeah, this NHI thing, yeah. But guys, what about these hospitals that we have? I remember when I was watching this. I still remember when I was watching this other video of Panyaza Lesuf. Katlego, she made a video of Panyaza Lesuf. Yeah. When I'm saying Katlego, citizens concerned, yeah. If you guys know her channel, yeah. When Panyaza Lesuf was talking about buying back private hospitals, like guys, private hospitals. When you Panyaza Lesufi and ANC government, you have failed to maintain these hospitals. What makes you think this time around these hospitals, are you gonna maintain them? You are going to maintain them. If these hospitals, you convert them to these 18 private hospitals, you convert them to public hospitals. When you know the mess of these public hospitals, these previous public hospitals and clinics that we have today, this crisis that we have today, why do you have to buy 18 private hospitals and convert? Why, when you have failed to maintain these previous ones that we have? Just go to any hospital in the country. Yeah, this one of private hospitals, yeah. Let's talk about this one of what you call this, of public hospitals and clinics. When you go there, you look at the long queues, you look at the attitude of these people, you look at the poor conditions in that hospitals. What about the mothers who are like maybe giving birth? Where are the beds that they should be sleeping at? Instead, the mothers are sleeping on the floors or on the benches or whatsoever, because there are no beds. This shows you guys what kind of government do we have here in this country. That's why we'll say with the citizens vote for what you call these politicians. Because guys, at the end of the day, when it comes to voting for these people, guys, there are consequences. There are consequences. Elections have consequences. People vote for the government they deserve. This is what has happened to South Africa. This is what happened. This is what happened here in this country, you know. And the next year it's elections again. What's gonna happen with the future of this country? Because you can see everything here in the country it's a mess. That's why I've been saying with the lavish lifestyles these people that they live. Where they live, you can't even enter. You as a citizen. But look everywhere in the country. Look at the mess in the whole country. Look at the mess in the hospitals. Look at the roads. Look at we still say everything. One thing, like, you know, we keep complaining about these issues every day that are happening here in the country. But do you think that politicians will take their children to public schools to learn? But no, politicians, they won't do that. They just take their children to the most, or maybe even if they can take them to overseas, or even if they can take them to these schools, private schools here in the country, so that they are. But when it comes to these ones of public schools, they won't take them there. Can see this issue, the fact that children have died in the pig toilets, the education system, the fact that, imagine 81% of grade 4 learners, they cannot read or they cannot write, you know. So with this issue of hospitals and clinics that we have in the country, guys, it's a mess. But actually, where the whole country.
Because Sleepy in the Sun happens.
5 a.m. Club Duvet. Introducing Savannah Tri-January.
I mediated, facilitated a panel with the podcast party, Unplugged? Was it Unplugged? Democracy Unplugged. My apologies. Democracy Unplugged. Podcast party. And I had different representatives of different political parties sitting there. And there was a video played, pre-recorded by one of the leaders of Action SA, where the DA there, I think we had someone that wasn't representing the ANC, but had worked with the ANC. And then we had a gentleman from the private sector. White, black people that were there. Male, female as well. And there was an audience. And we had a conversation. It can be found on the Podcast Party SA YouTube channel. But one of the questions I've been asked, Pen, what do you think of the NHI, the National Health Insurance? It used to be a bill. It's an act now. It's not a bill anymore. It's been made law.
Yeah, it was signed into a law.
I don't want to go too hard. I had the privilege of sitting with Ndate Padi Lehutla, the ex-statistician general. He quoted recent numbers. 71% of white people in South Africa are under medical aid.
Yeah, medical aid.
And use private healthcare. 71%.
Then 9% is... like
9% of black people have medical aid and are under private healthcare. Now, legacies of apartheid, definitely. Socioeconomic factors, of course. A woeful education system, definitely. The solution that the ANC government came up with, today we call it the
NHI.
GNU, the DA and others, is NHI, trying to copy Obamacare. This thing that everyone will be included. Now, outside of the data that I gave you, roughly 10% of our population has access to private healthcare and medical aid. 10%. The other 90%, understand 10% is 6.3 million. The other 90%, over 50 million people, maybe over 55 million people, rely on public clinics, public hospitals. And what government has decided to do is to bring all of these under one umbrella. And it's still tricky how they explain it, by the way. Because people are like, oh, private hospitals won't exist anymore. No, they will. What government is doing is this. You as an ordinary citizen, 90% that can't afford, will be able to use private healthcare practices, clinics, hospitals, and then they'll build government. For me, the easiest way to explain it is NSFAS. They're going to have this fund, the National Health Insurance, where the poor child who can't afford to go to UCT gets paid for by government. So you're like, oh, so government is going to pay for poor people to go into the, oh, done.
But where does that money come from? Taxpayers. Obviously. Where does someone else is paying for it? Taxpayers. Taxpayers.
Hey, unfortunately, it's not done. Because that's not actually what they're doing. Outside of obviously the privileged being annoyed, no, we can't be sitting with these people, they're going to crowd our, sure, whatever. The budget of private healthcare, your discoveries, your gems, your all these medical aids that are out there, schemes, and the private mediclinics and all these private hospitals, the money that they make a year is almost comparable to the budget of health from government. 90% of the population relies on a budget that is the equivalent of the budget of 10% of the population. The 10%, of course, is people paying their medical aid, people paying out of pocket. Very expensive. But 90% budget is the same as 10%, and government saying, no, Yazin, so what we're going to do is we're going to dip here in this money here. And that's where people that pay medical aid and the medical aid schemes, and they're like, fuck that. So we've built these businesses and you guys want to dip here to supplement here. That's bullshit. Now, elite people have got their problems. They've got their arrogance. They've got their racism, which of course we need to address and resolve. Not here. Not here. Our government has failed to fix and upgrade public healthcare, which serves 90% of the people. And instead of taking accountability and trying to figure out how to fix this,
because how they gonna fix these public healthcare systems, because they themselves, they've destroyed these public healthcare systems, like the rest of what you call this, like the rest of, you know, maybe you can say state, like the rest of the things that these people broke, maybe you can say state-owned entities, like, yeah, you know guys what I'm saying. You can see maybe everywhere you go in the country the mess that these people have done. And what makes you think with the same people who have broken down everything, tomorrow they can just come back and fix that mess that they've caused? They won't fix them because they have broken them. You know, is their mess. They're the reason why these hospitals and clinics, this public healthcare system, these public healthcare systems are broken down. What makes you think they can fix these public healthcare systems? They won't fix them.
They want to come and mess with the private sector. This is the equivalent of government saying, our education is so shit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the money from private schools to pay for kids here in public schools that we fucked up to go and study at private schools.
Obvious.
That's my understanding. Other people obviously correct me because, like I said, the way it gets explained, many people are still not sure what's going on. Our government refuses to take accountability for their fuck-ups.
Obvious.
And to try and fix their fuck-ups. And if they cannot fix them, to move out of the way. To be like, hey, you know what? We tried and failed. Administration is...
But if you hold them to accountable, they'll tell you about apartheid. This is the same thing that happened in Johannesburg with the hijacked buildings. When these buildings caught fire and whatsoever, you know this lady like Lindiwe Zulu, she came out and she said it is a fault of apartheid. Every time when these people, you try to hold them accountable, they come with excuses. But they are the ones who caused all of these things. They are the ones who messed up these things. You know, all of these things right now that we are complaining about in the country, they are the ones who messed up these things.
horrible. Corruption is horrible. Babita was murdered for blowing the whistle on corruption at the Gauteng Department of Health. People have been linked about Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who at some point was a presidential hopeful. He was the Minister of Health at some point. His son was enjoying tenders under Digital Vibes. People die in the hospitals. People don't want to be there. People feel like walking into a government hospital or clinic is asking for a death sentence.
Obvious. Exactly. He's telling the truth. We'll be here on these platforms complaining about the politicians and how bad are
those are my
people
thoughts on the NHI
and how horrible they
Act.
are and the mess that they've done to
Now,
the
when we
country.
speak about this is part of my problem. Government is the biggest employer in this country. I think they've got over 1.3 million, maybe, employees, who they pay well, relatively. Government employees are on arguably one of the best medical aid schemes in the country, GEMS. I think it's called the Government Employee Medical Scheme. It's brilliant. It even allows women, I think, to have like breast reduction, things that are like cosmetic. Why are government employees allowed to use private services?
Why don't they use public services?
Should they not be the first people to use public?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Should the money that they send to private not be ring-fenced and then brought to public? That's number one. And someone has said before that if you got the middle class and upper middle class to use the poorest public schools and to use the baddest public hospitals and clinics, they will automatically improve. Why? Because those people are going to complain.
Yes.
It's clever blacks, it's white people, it's Indians and coloreds that are better off, that live in suburbia. They will not stand for bullshit in that space, so they will complain. The reason these things are not getting better is because the poorest, most undereducated people are there. They don't know the right channels to complain. They don't know how to hold people to account. So take these private healthcare and medical aid blacks that work for government and force them to use public healthcare and watch what happens.
Something will change.
And you could even argue the same with private schools. Why is it that teachers that teach in the public schools get to send their kids to private schools?
Why?
No, bring them back here. You can't be selling a product to people that you don't want for your own children.
Yeah, why don't these teachers send their children to public schools? Why? Why don't they send them to public schools? Instead, their children they are learning in what? Private schools. Why don't they send their children to public schools? Even these politicians, why don't they send their children to public schools? Or why don't they go to public hospitals when they seek for medical, And the moment when these people starting or realizing to see all of these things, that's when changes will come. That's when these public hospitals and clinic or public schools, that's when you'll start to see changes. That's where changes will come. But instead, there are no changes. Still, it's a mess. Still, it's a mess that you'll see in these public schools and hospitals. Especially when it comes to public schools, look at the classes, look at the toilets, look at the education system. Look at the education system. But politicians or these people why don't they do that?
No, Baba. Here. That was the first issue. The second issue, which may even be worse, we live in a country where we have allowed politicians, members of parliament, ministers, the president and deputy, the speaker of parliament, the premier of provinces, the MECs in the provinces, the mayors, the MMCs in the mayoral offices, the ward councillors and the like.
Yes.
We live in a country that allows politicians to buy shares in companies that compete with the work they're meant to do? Why is it that MPs can buy shares in private healthcare, in Discovery, in Mediclinic, but they're meant to fix public? Just take a moment to think about it. I've got, let's say, for example, 100,000 Rand invested in Discovery, Mediclinic, and the like. I would like that share portfolio to go up. I'd like more people to sign up. I'd like it to make more profit so I can become richer. But at the same time, I work in a space where I'm meant to be fixing public healthcare. Do you know that if I fix public healthcare, people are going to leave medical aid and they're going to leave private hospitals?
Obvious.
And they're going to jump here.
To public.
Which means what? It means my share portfolio goes down in value. It's called a conflict of interest. How is it that politicians are allowed to have shares in companies that are competing with government work? You have shares in Curo, it's owned by Stadio. You have shares in Stadio, but you're meant to be fixing public education.
Obvious.
You have shares in PEP, or in whichever companies own Aramax and these courier companies. You have shares there, but you're meant to be looking after the post office, which has been destroyed, because you want your share portfolio to go up in these courier businesses that are private, and you've destroyed these public goods. Someone somewhere needs to at some point put their foot down and...
But you see all of these things that Penuel is mentioning them, or mentioning or talking, or mentioning them, or talking, or maybe mentioning them down or whatsoever. These politicians, they won't fix this mess that they've caused. They're not gonna fix this mess.
Say, there is no government employee that is going to send their kids to private schools.
They must
you will
send them
send your
to
kids
public.
to public schools. And if anything, we want to send your kids to the average public school so that you guys can bump up your service. No government employee is allowed to use private healthcare. You will use public healthcare because we need you guys that serve here to make sure that the service is better so that you and your family can come here. We will not allow you to buy shares in these companies that conflict with the work that we're doing, because we're meant to serve the people and not to be serving our share portfolio. That needs to be resolved. That's my closing on NHI.
No. Yeah, guys, you'll tell me what you... Hey, guys, I can see now this thing of mine, the camera. Hey, guys, I need to get a proper camera so that, guys, I can, make this thing like light. But, guys, as Penuel is talking about these issues here, this issue of public hospitals and clinics and public schools, guys. But it's the truth, because guys. But what can you say, guys? These are not the only issues that we have in the country. There are so many problems, and the fact that these politicians, they've caused these problems here in the country. Guys, it is bad. Things are bad in this country. But guys, you'll tell me what you think. Please subscribe, guys. Bye.